Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We have so much to talk about this week. It's Computex. I mean, everybody loves Computex. It's computer parts. We're not there. We're covering it remotely. But we've all joined remotely, as you can see in these little boxes, including a special guest. But that's a secret. I'll let him reveal that. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Kent Burgess.
And in for Brett Van Spurenberg, who also has a Scirocco, I'm Allyn Malventano.
How many Scirocco owners are there in North America, I wonder?
At least
this coming weekend, almost all of them are going to be in Dayton, Ohio.
Is that where you met, the two of you?
That's where I met Brett.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I met Frank.
There's layers. There's layers.
You guys don't know this? Oh, I get to spill the tea on Brett while he's gone. Yeah,
Ooh,
Frank
nice.
Frank is Brett when he's drunk. He has a different name.
Huh. Yeah. Really? Okay. By the way, it's episode 725. Hey, I didn't mention that. And we're recording this on the last day of May. It just wouldn't be the PCPer podcast without the burger segment, and Josh is here with us this week, of course. Did you have a burger this week?
I did have a burger, and they screwed up yet again. It was the naughty. I wanted the naughty. I wanted the naughty. And they didn't put any acid on it. They didn't put any of the jalapenos. Needed to have fresh cut jalapenos on there to kind of fill out that entire taste profile.
Josh wanted naughty, and he was denied.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I'm an older man.
So naughty needs to be a little spicier than it used to be, right?
Man's got needs.
Otherwise, it was a perfectly good burger. It filled me up. I'm not eating again tonight, so there you go.
Let's move into news. And we're not going to cover all of Computex, but we'll look at a few stories here and there from other outlets that have been, you know, on-prem. Is that a term for I don't know. They're attending in person. Here's one that's, you know, we have Allyn on the show, so we have to talk about solid-state storage ad nauseum. Story number one, PC World, talking about solid-state cooling for solid-state storage. It's the match made in heaven.
I saw the video on the AirJet thing. I didn't realize they tried to stick it on an SSD.
Yes, that was their thought for some reason.
And I think they're rated
I like the idea of the AirJet.
Yeah,
that puts out some. That'd be a couple of watts that it can dissipate.
Well, they're rated at 5 watts of cooling each, I think. Somewhere around there. And so naturally they put 2 on an SSD that only dissipates like 5 watts. So, I don't know. Seems a little...
Well, you have to cool the NAND, Allyn, as you know.
Oh,
you don't want your NAND getting too warm.
I'm shaking my fist in your general direction.
Well, I want my bits to be safe. I don't want them to get cooked.
Well, but are they going to be safe at 200 kilometers an hour? Because wasn't that part of their press release saying that...
Hey, you know what? The closer you get it to minus 40C, the faster it gets, because that's when silicon becomes a superconductor.
Let's dust off the old Allyn technical note to those actively cooling their solid state drives. Please only actively cool the controller, not the NAND. I beg of you. And it's because you actually
likes to be warm.
NAND is rated, especially on client, regular SSDs, is rated to run at, oh dang, what's the number now? I'm trying to remember. Is it 42? Well, I don't know if it's 42. Maybe it is.
Come on, get the joke. Come on, man.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, if you run NAND at room temperature, if you force it to be 25C while you're writing to the drive, and you do like the lifetime worth of writes of endurance to the drive, the retention gets cut in half. So it basically cuts your endurance in half, effectively.
So it doesn't double it; it cuts it in half.
It cuts it in half. Now it'll store data for twice as long at room temperature. Like once the data is already saved on it, then colder temperatures is better. It's when you're doing the writing, the opposite. You know, the thing that was helping you store data for longer periods of time actually hurts you if you're forcing it to be cold while you're trying to change the state, the stored data.
Yeah, but SSDs are a little bit too expensive to start treating like tape and just sort of writing to them and then putting them somewhere so they can be sat at room temperature.
No, listen, that's more.
I mean, hey, It sounds good, but that's still pretty expensive.
I've started to field like an increasing rate of those types of questions from people. Like, hey, what's the actual like retention of an SSD if you only write to it once or twice? Because people were clearly getting into that realm of, I only have a terabyte of stuff. I can buy one of these SSDs for $50, right? Can I, or 2 terabyte SSDs are running around.
So slap it in, clone it, and then just store it.
Yeah, the idea is if you just write into it one time, that the client rating is retention for a year, but that rating is based on the end of life. So you've already exhausted all of the writes you can do. Then at that point, it's rated to hold for a year. So if it's brand new and you've only written a couple of times, right? While there isn't a specific rating that says like 10 years or whatever, but you can kind of do a little bit of the math in your head, right? If it's worst case scenario is it can still hold it for a year. Clearly, it can hold it for much longer. If you've only written to it once, right? So yeah, and especially if it's colder temperatures, it stores it for even longer. Now, of course, don't go sticking something in a freezer. And
I was going to say, what about I put it next to my 35 millimeter film and my batteries, right? So,
I mean, you could, yeah, as long as you make sure you don't fire it up while there's condensation on it from being super cold. If you decided to store it like really cold, but the colder you store NAND, the less the electrons leak and the longer it will hold the data, right? Especially if it's
Honey, what's this bill for LN2?
I'm saving the baby picture, sweetie.
Well, I mean, but chances are, even on a shelf, you're probably good for like 10 years with a brand new drive.
What about a spinning drive? I can put that on a shelf and come back 20 years later as long as the heads aren't stuck. It's probably fine, right?
Yeah, as long as the heads aren't stuck.
Well, heads on modern drives
hasn't leaked out.
Yes, that's the more important issue.
Oh,
right?
no, okay.
Although that's a super rare thing. That's like an extremely rare thing because you need a leak not just big enough for the helium to leak out of the hole, but it needs to be big enough for the air to come back in.
So put it in a helium safe, like
in a
helium
or hydrogen
room, pressurized.
Okay.
I don't know. What's going to happen with my one backup on a hard drive on a shelf?
It'll float
as long
away.
as the backup. You're already in the minority by having the backup, my friend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kent, you've been quiet. How do you back up your data? Is it a hard drive on a shelf? Do you use multiple resources?
From one set of hard drives to
I have a home server that I have one external drive connected to that backs up daily, but it's also backing up to Backblaze constantly as well. So I have one on-site backup and one external backup.
Yep.
And it's all spinning Rust at this point.
I have varying degrees of like the more important it is, the more places it's in.
Keeping to the SSD discussion, and this is neither here nor there, but it's Computex and there's new stuff being announced. And one of the things that just came out was the new crucial Gen 5 SSD, and they're going passive with this. I'm not seeing a fan here. It's
There's
lower
a heat
power.
Yeah, but a lot of the SSD
it's a pretty
Gen
chunky
5 have had active.
Yeah, actually, in this angle, the first angle, it looked really flat.
Oh.
In this angle, it's more 3D.
It's just chunky. Yeah, it's got some.
Oh no! Look at one of the side shots on it. It's pretty chunky. You're not going to fit this under your.
That's
GPU.
not chunky.
Yeah, it looks flat.
I
could watch the Linus video on it, I guess.
Chunkier.
Where is the side shot? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think they're really showing it here.
Oh.
It's a decent. It's like it looks like it's a centimeter tall from that angle shot.
At least it doesn't have a fan.
Well,
and all the other Gen 5 drives I've seen so far had fans.
Yep.
What's weird about the fan thing is there should be enough air movement at that part of the motherboard with any regular GPU that has fans also, right? Like you're already moving air around down there. If you go full water cooled, then maybe you need to start talking about some sort of movement. But again, how often are you how long are you pegging the SSD for where you're drawing like 10 watts?
I just remembered I have one.
Keep it up.
So
Sebastian just has. Well, pop open that box.
I'm gonna see how thick it is. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Was not ready for this. Let me switch to my camera here for a minute.
Is it bigger than you expected?
It's
okay. So chunky.
This I opened up the packaging. Like, this is just a regular SSD. What's the big deal?
Yeah, look at that.
And I'm gonna take it out.
It has hidden depths. Oh my!
It's
Huge,
That's more than a
huge,
centimeter.
huge tracks of heatsink.
thicker than I expected. This is a good inch tall.
Is it
That's
as
at least
tall as it is wide?
That's at least
I
as
would say
big
so.
as your finger.
It's
if you
yeah,
were to
it's like
stick
a
it in
cube.
there.
It's tapered
it's-
though. Can you see the taper?
Ooh.
So
We can
no
see
heat
through it.
pipes
So you
in
can
it.
more easily insert it.
Oh, that was a good
into a
shot.
slot.
Yeah.
So it's following the M.2 42/4280 standard, where you're, or 22, where you're 22 wide and 22 tall.
Yeah. And I also
then-
like
and
the
then
fact
80
that
long.
the heatsink is spread out in such a way that you could probably insert more metal in there if you needed to cool it faster.
I just
But
need to put
as
one of those
Al says-
Noctua coolers on it. So
Oh,
Sit
I
tight.
guarantee you Noctua is working on this. But as Al
you
says,
need
it's
to.
keeping the NAND cooler than it needs to be.
So
Unless
listen,
it's
even if the thing is operating more, just the fact that it's a decent amount of thermal mass, right? Even with no air moving over it, for any type of typical burst storage usage, like typical kind of usage, like maybe you write, you copy something big over 50 gig, 100 gig, something like that. But it's still, if you're going full speed, it's only going to take it, a few dozen seconds or so, right? So there's enough mass in that heatsink where it doesn't matter if air is moving over it, it's going to be able to absorb that and not thermal throttle, right?
unless I have two and I'm doing like a full drive transfer from one to the other at Gen 5 speeds.
Well, then it's going to get
gonna
kind of
throttle.
hot. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know that it would with
When
that.
you do large
That's
transfers,
hard.
do you yell at the computer, take it all?
Well, if you do that, you're helping to cool the
Faster.
SSDs with your breath.
oh, okay,
Going
yeah.
across the thing.
Yeah.
It's,
That's another reason that there's the endless debate. Up on the desk, down below the desk. Where do you put your
Right.
PC?
you want it up on the desk, right? You can't.
Right, so
you
your
can't
shouting
yell.
helps to move airflow.
Yes. If you shout at hard drives, it hurts performance. Right?
That slows performance.
Oh, because of the
But if you
vibrations,
shout-
right.
If you shout at your M.2 SSDs, as long as there's a heat spreader or heat sink thing on it, it actually improves performance.
See, this is why you watch the PC Perspective podcast. Who else
You
is
should- you
talking
should write
about
this? It's one of you guys should write that article so you could do
Yeah.
testing.
I need to see more technical data on this. I think someone
Yeah.
should write a paper regarding the effects of shouting. airflow on.
You have to have a
NVMe
high airflow
SSDs.
case or an open test bed. I mean, that's just a given.
There you go.
If it's a
Reasons
totally
for an open
enclosed
test.
case, shouting will
Oh,
do very
no.
little.
No, I want a tube that I can just blow on that directs my air right
Through.
towards.
You want a
the,
little hole through the heat spreader that you can have a
Exactly.
straw
You want
into.
full penetration into the enclosure is what you're saying.
right.
In fact, I would like to just spread out across all of the NAND chips, and maybe little holes on the side so that I can pick which ones get.
Well, if you want airflow, just put that tube to my kid's mouth as he's playing Valorant.
Is there a lot of trash talking going on?
you could power.
Here's the funny
power-
thing about the heat spreader without a lot of airflow, like pulling it down to ambient. That actually helps, like just having a heat spreader, because then while it's active, the controller gets hot. Sort of means you could be doing writing at the time, right? What happens? The heat transfers from the controller across the heat spreader to the NAND and
To the
warms it up
NAND.
while you're doing the writing.
Yep.
When you want it to
Do
be
you remember
warm.
when Samsung had the copper strip to help
Yep,
They put
maintain
it on
that?
both sides. They had a copper label on both sides of the drive.
Yep.
and it made the drives look nice too.
And they feel great.
You could skip
I mean,
them
that
across the
copper,
lake so nicely.
so smooth.
Oh, it just
All right. Let's talk about the next news story. We were talking about cooling, SSDs. Noctua needs to get in the game. Well, here's one game they're in, obviously, CPU cooling. But look at this. There's no D16 yet, but they're talking about a second gen D15 that will come out in the second quarter of 2024.
I think that name is not final.
Maybe this is
Yeah.
the D16 then.
It might be.
it looks like about 2 kilos is what it does.
Is that like a Klingon battlecruiser?
It's very interesting. They've gone up to, it looks like it's got 7 heat pipes now, as opposed to the old 6.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first we've seen of them using those the Sterox blades that are so important to the NFAA
Notched for your pleasure.
12s. But they've got those Sterox blades on a 140 now, and they've been working on that for ages. So that's very interesting.
It's able to move air at a higher pressure, so then they added some extra chunk to the heatsink part.
I like the conclusion here talking about pricing. Previous editions, such as the D14 and D15, retailed for $89 and $99. Therefore, the second generation NHD15 could debut with a similar price tag.
It'll be
That
a
is
little higher.
flawless logic. Let's see.
It'll
Bigger,
be a little higher.
$99.99.
faster, inflation.
More cooling, better cooling.
Yeah.
Like they were claiming like a 3 to 4 degree temperature drop just from this
139.
one and the last one.
90.
I don't know if they go that high. You're getting into for 139. You're getting into the server cooler territory.
Yeah, and the crappy rods too, the all-in-ones.
I don't know. We shall see. You know, we've talked on this podcast a lot about the kind of at this point, it's kind of ridiculous that everybody's still on gigabit. And I know Josh doesn't believe that anything faster than gigabit networking at home is necessary. But
well, maybe for Alan with his 5.5.
Yeah, when you're moving stuff
petabytes.
around the network, when you've got data online, you want more than a gigabit because you're stuck at like 110 megabytes per second for transfer speeds.
I do have 10 gigabit, but I normally don't use it that much because I've made it so that everything that needs to move around is all within the same racks, like in the same location.
Okay. So that's faster anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, interconnects are much better.
But Realtek, because we have 2.5 gig stuff and the switches are starting to get really cheap finally. And more routers are, have at least one 2.5 port, whatever good that does. But Realtek, they want to change that. They want you to put a card. I'm hoping that this will not just be like an expansion card that'll start to appear in more motherboards, but they want to take consumer Ethernet speeds to a new level later this year. This is an article at Tech Power Up. 5 gigabit per second. Forget 2.5 and 10. There was something missing. The missing link.
If only there was already a new level that was like 10 years old.
I know. More than a decade ago, we had 10 gigabit. But sorry, it's too hot. It's too power hungry. It's too expensive. Yeah. They bring up the fact that this is lower power, lower heat. Hey, it's half the transfer speed. Takes up half the power. I don't know if it's linear like that, but $5 or less is the expectation for the chip.
And what is it? It's USB-C? So it's not like a LOM or anything?
Yeah, I mean, these pictures, there's prototype
PCI
stuff.
PCIe 3.0.
Because you know what my favorite Ethernet adapters have always been historically? USB Ethernet adapters.
Really?
They always work perfectly.
Are you being sarcastic, Jeremy?
Yeah, maybe even salty.
If you can find the specific ones that work on like Linux out of the box.
Oh yeah,
like,
those are
fair.
Then you buy buy 5 of those, you put them in your drawer and you save them for later.
Yes.
Because they'll also work with televisions. Yeah, because you can get like the gigabit, because most TVs only come with like 100 megabit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you want it not on wireless and you want to upgrade, like as long as you have to check like compatibility and stuff, but some TVs you can just plug in a USB like gigabit.
That's pretty fascinating. I have not thought about this.
Yeah, that's a thing.
This is going to end up being marketed as basically 5G, and there's going to cause confusion.
So the best thing about that is that that 5G will fit into your USB-C on your phone. So you can instantly upgrade your phone.
What if I don't
5G?
have a 5G? Yes.
Yes. 5G and 5G.
I wonder if you have a phone with USB-C, but that does not natively have 5G.
You can buy one of these.
And then the external antenna, I could just run it up my arm.
Power as your
SoC.
So.
Oh, boy. Okay. That story was a rousing success. Oh, I loved this story. ASUS, everybody's favorite brand these days. But okay. Do you remember AGP Pro?
Yes.
And it wasn't
on Gigabyte board.
Yeah, it wasn't a faster interface. It had
more power.
More power.
Yep.
ASUS just figured that out. Hey, wait a minute. What if we made like a PCI Express Pro? They have a RTX 4070 at Computex with an added
no power
slot. Where's the picture here? It's like, here's the extra slot for power at the end, past where like the retention clip would be. And there it is.
I hope they have a better unlocking mechanism than just try to fit your finger in.
Yeah, that would really suck.
I was looking for that. It's the same.
Asus has that button to unlock the graphics card from the other side of the board on certain boards.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, well,
including
scroll up
Strix.
because there is a strange looking plastic thing on that picture.
Yeah.
There you go. Take a look. See that
There's
thing?
the lock.
The Tough Gaming?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's
Okay,
attached.
there's your lock.
This one doesn't seem to have the button, though. I've talked to them about this. Like, is this...
Okay.
Is there a button?
Yeah,
it needs to be done in
still-
software. Like, just click a button, in the BIOS and unlock your graphics
In
card.
software.
Yeah.
Hear a big solenoid click over on the motherboard.
Oh, that's interesting. With all the power ports on the back of the motherboard.
Yeah, that exists
And
outside of
SATA.
this project, but yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's got its own
You got
case, and
SATA
they're trying to be super
power
clean.
and something else on the back.
DIY ape.
USB,
Yeah.
all in the back.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Interesting.
12 volt high. Where is the 12 volt high power somewhere on there? That would be great.
You only have to have 2-inch long motherboard standoffs to plug your USB
Well, yeah, I was
gonna-
need a
that
special
would be
header
one
cable
question.
in.
There's holes in the back of the case that match.
Yeah.
Yeah, special cutouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
like
you
the
just
idea. It's
stack a
just-
bunch of
it's
the
very limited.
standoffs together until they're tall enough.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just screw them together in chains.
A day or so ago, the big story in the tech world, like the big mainstream media tech world, was that NVIDIA had become a $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't
about 5
last.
minutes.
Yeah, that didn't last because they had to trade over basically $405 a share, and it's down to like, I don't know, 385 or something now. So they're a $900 billion company. But for a while.
Yeah, but are they? Except by one
On
specific
paper, I know it's
definition.
market valuation. Let's look at their current stock price. You can speculate on NVIDIA stock and the future, or AI future, right now.
Oh,
live.
that looks nasty.
Yeah, it dropped
Boy,
a
that
little
was
bit.
a drop. 6%.
So,
That
I mean,
old Jensen's feeling that one.
they are writing AI. I don't feel like this is any harder than they rode blockchain, though. Like, remember when every company it was harnessing the power, leveraging the power of the blockchain?
Yes.
Everything was going to use blockchain. Nobody knows what blockchain is, but everything's going to use blockchain.
Yeah, but the
And
AI
now
thing
everything's gonna
actually
use
does
AI.
something.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
no one knows
Alan
what
is
AI
right.
is, but
The AI thing actually accomplishes something as opposed to like
Yeah.
Maybe not accurately.
I don't know.
I
No,
it's
it'll make stuff up happily.
it's
Might have seven
what,
fingers.
Adventure Time. I have knowledge. I have approximate knowledge of many things.
things, except much faster, much
and
faster.
that knowledge only exists as a snapshot from 2019.
Mhm.
By the way, so don't ask me about like what the weather's going to do next year because you'll get a 2020 answer. That's wrong. The thing is, like all this technology stuff, right? It's gonna scale. Things that started at data center only, give it a few years, you'll have like your phone doing machine learning on current events, like based on what you asked about, instead of like it'll be like, Metacrawler AI on your phone.
Hey, remember,
Like,
Jensen
you know,
said
Ask Jeeves.
the data
Ask
center.
Jeeves the AI.
Ask Jeeves, but it's actually going to be Jeeves, right?
The data center is now the computer.
That's not
Yeah.
inaccurate because everybody's using
Yeah.
a connected device that's harnessing that power, that's leveraging the data center.
Yeah. It's just
gonna
that
be-
over time, Wendell from Level 1 Techs is like, he's got a system in his office just sitting there crunching away, like doing machine learning stuff.
Yep.
On his own. He just wants his own data set. It's already a thing that you can have on your own workstation system. It
Oh,
doesn't
hell
even
yeah.
need to be as long
Yeah,
as you're
that's-
willing to limit the data set to something smaller, right?
Well, that's my daytime job. Is we do edge AI, edge machine learning on animals hitting wind turbines. So instead of having an intern go over 8 hours of video that takes like still 4 hours to do something halfway accurately, we just throw AI at it on the edge at these files that we've saved from cameras, thermal and spectral, and figure out, what kind of animals are hitting wind turbines, bats, birds, whatever. The
Has anyone spotted
short range launched children.
well, fair. Has anyone seen a
Yeah.
moose hit one yet?
No, we originally did the study and we called it Angry Birds because we launch things at the wind turbines, and trying to hit turbines is a lot harder than you think.
The thing that tends to interest me about this is my brain keeps coming back to a scene from a movie about like all this AI stuff happening. Like, what was it, like over 10 years ago now? What was that movie? Her? It was like an AI movie. I think it was Scarlett
Yes,
Johansson
it's with the Phoenix kid. Joaquin.
Yeah, right. There's this whole movie, and the premise was that like there was an AI thing. You installed this operating system, and like and then eventually it just led to them having conversion. They huddled. All the AIs huddled, and like they went off and they were their own race by the end of the movie or whatever. Yeah. But at the beginning, that this one scene keeps coming back to me with all this AI stuff coming up, because like we're probably pretty close to the point where you have some assistant thing, and the scene from the movie was, oh, I went through and I sorted all of your email for you, and I picked out the actual important things, and I just went through, and the guy had like tens of thousands of things in his mailbox that he didn't even bother reading at that point, right? And this thing, in a couple of seconds, just ripped through all of it, figured out intelligently what was actually important, based on the right context of the person, and all that stuff, right? And like that stuff can happen pretty soon, probably.
Mm-hmm. Right? Are you saying that Microsoft Hotmail, or whatever they call it today, isn't already doing that?
Well, they try to do it for like filtering spam and trying to do other,
related. I've got focused and then everything.
Yeah, there's
and
focused
is garbage.
Yeah,
but that's my point.
It's not,
is that you trust the AI to filter your email, and yes, it will go through tens of thousands in no time at all and come up with some important ones. But
well, the one that was focused for me is, I would be happy to welcome you online on the dating website because I searched for a dude like you.
Yeah, I want the thing. Right. I want the thing that's not. Focusing I want the thing that's not necessarily in the cloud doing it. I want it where the compute is better enough at the edge, at your edge, where you can have the thing tailored to you. That's not sharing your information with everybody else on the planet at the same time as it's like. And then you do some sort of interactive thing, like when you're working with ChatGPT for something where you can sort of refine what the task is over time. Like you can just go through your email and just over voice be like, hey, it comes up with things that it thinks are important. You can weed it out a little bit and it'll learn from that. And then it'll refine the search and refine, and then within like 20 minutes or something, you could have pared your, tens of thousands or 100,000 emails down to like a few dozen that actually mattered to you, right? And then it learned from that, and now in the future, it's just going off of that training, right? Like that's the kind of thing.
I believe I wore the correct shirt for this discussion tonight.
Yeah, I think you might have.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was going to say the other movie that comes to mind is.
It's very appropriate since I work for a company called Solidigm, so it's
yes. They're one of the triumvirate.
I just wonder
around right now.
I wonder when AI.
God, we're just tempting fate, aren't we, with these names?
Yeah.
I'm going to go and take some Soma.
Science fiction always inspires all of these things.
All right,
so drink a can of Soylent.
Soylent, yes.
It doesn't surprise me that NVIDIA is leaning into this AI thing, like, seriously. I mean, they've been leaning into it for a long time now, probably ahead of their time back at the beginning.
Hey, Josh, what kind of hardware do you guys run to do your inferencing?
NVIDIA.
RTX 4070 and a AMD 5800X 3D.
Oh, really?
And it's super low power for those two together to do what they're doing. And because they're sitting in the base of a turbine, and it's about 90 degrees in there, and both of them are just kind of sipping power. So it's been working great.
Are there like bunches of these or just like a few?
No, this is just a test run. When we are thinking about other projects in more extreme areas, and we'll be getting a more ruggedized setup. Because right now it's just in a high ventilation gaming case. It looks really weird and out of place in the bottom of a wind turbine.
Josh figured out a way to build gaming PCs for his day job.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me,
Yes,
guys. You need the 3D.
I did.
You need the 3D.
We had one of our guys in Minnesota go down to Micro Center as I ordered all the parts, and they assembled it there. And
Also, he could
guy's
play.
like, "Wow, this is a really solid build, man. You gonna go gaming on this?" And he's like, "No."
Also, he can play the real version of Angry Birds.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this explains a lot of weird things that have happened in video games, where you're just sort of wandering through a post-apocalyptic world, and you enter into a windmill, and suddenly you find this bright, shiny object that obviously you need to pick up.
Yeah.
Well, Josh has just dropped some loot for a future generation.
Yep. There's going to be a gaming PC at the base of the windmill playing Angry Birds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, just talking about obviously NVIDIA and running NVIDIA on like an AMD platform. You know, Intel has never been less relevant than they are right now in this AI generation, right? I mean, what if there was a time, a world, where Intel never existed at all, where NVIDIA made CPUs? Well, NVIDIA MGX is real. Is real?
I mean, there were some of them there were some of them at Computex on the show floor. So
Israel, what?
Sorry, I was going to tell Matt Hatter that if it was Logan's Run, I wouldn't have to worry about it. So can't really pick that future. No, so MGX is a new open server spec for certain values of open. But NVIDIA sort of figured out that, the old rack mounts were, we're talking 30, 40-year-old designs. They were not built for what we're running, let alone HPC cards. So their idea is to kind of come up with a modular design, which is specifically designed, surprisingly enough, for their high-performance computing cards. Because, I mean, you're NVIDIA, why wouldn't you do this? But the thing is, they've got just about everyone to sign on for it because it makes a fair amount of sense. We need to redesign how rack mounts are done. What used to be an entire site takes up an entire rack to now we can share multiple sites across a single U on a rack. Why shouldn't you sort of redesign how these things are done? And so that sort of seems to be what they're pushing with it. And it actually looks kind of interesting. It makes a lot of sense. And I mean, just about everyone but Supermicro, I think, has signed up for them. I think it's a relatively decent idea. So it was ASRock, ASUS, Gigabyte, Pegatron, obviously, QCT, and Supermicro did sign on for them. All of them have customers. It's an interesting idea, and it will let them do some more inventive things in the server room than we've seen in a while, because honestly, server rooms have gotten kind of boring. You walk in and they almost all look the same. So hey, let's spiff them up a bit.
Let's pause here for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
As a software engineer, it's not always straightforward to find just the right place to practice your craft. People like us can often find it difficult to settle into just the right role for our careers. Well, consider Bloomberg. They're out there working to build a top-notch information network for financial professionals, and they're looking for engineers to join their team. Personally, I know that I've always wanted to work on challenging projects that had real impact on actual shipping products and services, but sometimes that has just not worked out. While I've not yet worked for Bloomberg, they're forward-looking and are building tools their clients will come to rely on for systems that matter in solving real-world complex problems across global capital markets. They're working in real-time market and enterprise data with sophisticated analytics that are touched by over 350,000 financial professionals. Bloomberg systems operate at tremendous scale with over 300 billion, yes, B as in billion, market messages daily. So many of you will already be up to speed on the majority of Bloomberg software, as it's built in C++, JavaScript, and Python. So you're obviously not going to get locked into a proprietary shop, as Bloomberg's engineers are active members of the open source community in both leveraging and making commits back to many projects. Learn more about the opportunities that await you by visiting Bloomberg.com/careers. That's Bloomberg.com/careers.
We're back from our break, and we are going to talk to our guest, Allyn, and the rest of the podcast panel here about a very important issue affecting everybody in the PC hardware space. Obviously, the biggest topic of 2023 has been VRAM. And
I was going to think it was pharmacology and blue pills.
I thought it was tooth decay.
PC hardware. VRAM.
Was it the blue pill or the red pill?
everyone knows
Sort of a purple.
that the answer is to just put all of the VRAM, copious amounts of VRAM on the GPU, just all the memory on the GPU, and then the GPU has to store all of the textures. And it's like, I was thinking about this earlier today and talking to Allyn about this. Because
if only there was a thing that could load stuff into the VRAM on the fly.
Storage
Shocking.
is the answer. Storage can save gaming in 2023. We don't need all the VRAM on the GPUs.
Oh, Sebastian,
nice.
you've talked about Optane enough.
It's not Optane.
not Optane.
Remember this direct storage
Whatever happened to
thing?
AMD attaching storage to their graphics cards?
That
was a thing too. That was a thing too.
It's different things have been tried, but we had this standard called direct storage, and so far, as many as 1 titles have adopted it. And think about the PlayStation 5. This thing was announced, and they were talking in sort of these mysterious terms about how the storage was actually the star. That it was, and Allyn was just salivating, like, yes, storage. Like, this ultra-fast SSD is the future. High-resolution textures being loaded in off the SSD in real time. You get closer to the wall, boom, 8K texture. Like, yes.
And they set up everything. They set up everything in the chain so that there was no bottleneck beyond like 5.5 gig per second. Right, the SSD.
And remember that number. This is a very important number.
Went 5.5. Everything went 5.5 end to end, and it was able to stream that stuff on the fly. Like as you were turning in the game, it could load stuff before you even were facing the other direction. Right.
If only Carmack had this for Rage.
So that happened like what? It was like early. Well, Carmack tried to do it with Rage. Yes.
Yeah, tried.
Honorable mention to him, and that was like 10 years prior, by the way, when Rage came out. The first one, at least. The second one kind of did it better, and that was only a few years
I never
ago.
even looked at it.
Yeah, there was a second one. It took like.
I got it for
8 years.
sale for like $5. I've never.
Yeah,
Have you
it just
played
kind of
it?
like came out. It's like, oh, here's the second one. Eh.
Yeah. But unfortunately, humans once again chose VHS over Betamax.
Well, that PS5 talk happened in like March or something of 2020, and then also in the same month, Microsoft is like, "Hey, me too, Xbox direct storage, right, guys? You know, like literally the same, like within a few days, right?" And then
but they're all on the same base hardware.
Yeah.
So how hard can it be?
Right. And it's a bunch of OS stuff you got to do, but fair enough. And then like 6 months later, oh, hey, it's coming to PC. Okay, cool. That was 2020. Right? And they're already up to like direct storage, 1.2?
1.2, yeah.
Or
which nobody's even utilizing.
It was 1.1 came out a few months ago, and then 1.2 is like even adding support for like SATA and hard drive and stuff like that. But okay, so yes, adoption kind of sucks, and that's bad, right? That's bad for gaming because, to Sebastian's point, if only you had more games using it, this VRAM thing, kerfuffle, whatever you want to call it for NVIDIA right now, would be less of an issue, right? Because games could just be streaming the stuff on the fly. You don't necessarily need to fit the whole level or all of the textures that you need to see at any given moment in the GPU VRAM all at the same time.
You wouldn't even need a super expensive graphics card because some of the cost is driven by the parent rising costs of memory for them. This high bandwidth memory that they use, the GDDR6 and 6X.
Yeah, PS5 is able to share 16 gig across the OS, the game, and the GPU memory, and do all of that because, in part, it's streaming the stuff on the fly.
And I love the fact that they have identified like the weakest link. Like the bottleneck would be somewhere around 5.5 gigabytes per second.
Yeah.
And then everything just targets that so that there is no bottleneck. Everything's just humming along, storage, memory. And here's something very interesting that I did not know about before talking to Allyn about this earlier.
I put a link in the notes just now to a Tom's article, which you should pull up and go to the first table.
Okay.
In the Tom's article.
It's fascinating to understand this.
I'm going to blow you guys' minds.
Within graphics cards themselves that prevent them from being more efficient at loading textures, and it's
Yep. Go to the table. Scroll down a little bit. Okay. Let's do a brief walk. Follow me, if you will, as we walk through performance.
Look at that
test
ARC
results.
770 performance.
Yeah, so this article was intended to show that ARC was able to go faster than AMD and NVIDIA at GPU accelerated texture decompression, right? So kudos to Tom's for doing this testing and posting these numbers. But there is something else we can glean from these numbers that's very relevant to that 5.5 gig per second that we just talked about. All of these numbers are only showing the rate of the output of the textures. In other words, after the texture decompression happens, right? Mm-hmm. GPU textures are compressed at roughly a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, so if you look on the right side of this chart, you see SATA does about 0.5 gig per second. All of the texture outputs are about 1.5 gig per second, right? So there's your 3x from that number, right? Now, if you go to the next column to Gen 3 PCI, which goes 4 gig per second, so that's 8 times what SATA was doing, right? And those texture rates are all approximately 8x when you go from SATA to PCIe 3.0, when you go from the right column to the middle column there, except for the bottom line, which is the CPU doing decompression, and it does not scale the same way because the CPU becomes the bottleneck at that point, right? So beyond that point, it doesn't matter. You're still stuck at 5.2 gig per second output, even if you go to Gen 4. Like, you're just not going to go any faster unless you're doing GPU texture decompression. Now, when you go from the middle column to the left column, it's 4 gig per second versus 8 gig per second as far as the SSD is concerned, but those output numbers are not doubling. You're going from like 13.9 to 16.8 on the ARC, right? On the RTX 4080, you're going from 12.7 to 15.3. It's basically like 20 to 30% uplift going from Gen 3 to Gen 4. It's not 100% increase as you would expect just by looking at the SSD throughput. So what does that tell us? Bottleneck's not on the SSD anymore, right? Bottleneck's on the GPU. And if you take those roughly 15, 16 gig per second output throughputs and you divide by 3 to get back to what the storage bandwidth is, you get 5.5 gig per second. So lo and behold, the GPU hardware can only accept texture streams to decompress accelerated at an input of 5.5 gig per second. So it doesn't matter how much faster your SSD is beyond that number if you are buying it for direct storage stuff. Yeah. So basically, you're 80% of the way there with like a good Gen 3 SSD, even if you still have one lying around, like, decent high end one, right? Or a Gen 4 drive. It's not even going to saturate Gen 4 as fast as direct storage can go, at least on current graphics hardware.
Sounds like it's time for an ASIC in the middle of a GPU.
Well, there already is one. It's an IP block on. It's part of the hardware. It's part of the die, right? It's in there somewhere. It's just that it's rate limited at about that speed because, I'm sure they could make it go faster, but somebody did it initially, probably AMD for this PS5 like console thing, right? NVIDIA probably followed suit, but did they necessarily need to like mop up the floor with AMD's number? Probably not, because they probably determined that around that 5.5 gig per second point was your point of diminishing returns for probably some other reasons, right? Why throw a bunch of...
I'll tell you, my point of diminishing returns was like 25, 26.
Well, you made it that far.
It's the same sort of concept as the part of the GPU that's able to do transcoding, right? When you're doing transcoding, there's some silicon dedicated for that task. There might be multiple transcoding engines, some multiple of them on, for different SKUs or whatever. But right, each one is only going to go so fast. So you can transcode a video at about the same speed on like a 3090 versus a 3060, for example, right? It's the transcode speed is roughly the same because it's just that silicon only goes so fast. So same sort of deal for the texture decompression engines on at least all of the current gen GPU stuff, right? Maybe next gen.
What about Apple? What about Apple? Are they limited in this way? They have all that fast memory in a big pool.
I don't even know what their hardware accelerated texture decompression speed is. Somebody would have to like test it.
Yeah, it'd be a fascinating topic for the elites.
All I know is I want to reload Rage and run the benchmark. and just look around and see if things pop like it used to.
See if things pop in.
Yeah.
So speaking of the popping in, that's another point, is that game developers, when they start to finally adopt DirectStorage, right, do you think they're going to tune only for that 5.5 gig per second number, or are they going to tune for maybe some other minimum set by Microsoft or some other guidance, right?
Yeah.
I've seen numbers floating around like 2.5 or 3 gig per second as like the expected minimum speed from an SSD used for DirectStorage. So if a developer,
that's still stinking fast.
it's still stinking fast, considering you're doing like you're reading from a bunch of different areas at the same time.
Yeah, with
and
texture data and that. It's still pretty damn fast.
Well, the reason DirectStorage is able to
even
go
big
that
textures are not that big. Okay, they can be, but
4096.
Right. Like there's a rule of thumb that's like, 32K or something. Like the DirectStorage guidance was like an SSD should be able to do high Q depth random reads of 32K transfer size, on multiple threads at high Q depth all at the same time. And the reason they want you to test that way to sort of get a baseline for how fast the SSD can go at that sort of workload is because the DirectStorage workload is doing that sort of thing, right? Like DirectStorage API expects the game engine to just ask for everything it needs in one go. Like, hey, what all do you want right now? And it expects like multiple gigabytes even in a single request potentially, right? And the way that it's able to turn around and service them so quickly and get the SSD to actually go full speed is because it takes that request and breaks it up into all the smaller requests that need to go out, and it issues them almost all at once to the SSD. It basically throws, like I've seen over Q depth 200 instantaneous, Q depth to an SSD when it like responds to that DirectStorage call. So it's basically making the SSD just give it all she can, right?
The biggest chunk is all art assets because stuff like geometry and shading. Yeah. I mean, those are very, very small programs compared.
Yeah, they're small, but if you read them in the legacy way, you're going to read them much slower, right? DirectStorage can get them in from a bunch of different areas in parallel.
Well, we should send them to that speed reader course.
Well, there's other benefits. If
you got to read them in chunks, man.
When you do the GPU accelerated texture decompression, it turns from like 4 to 5 mem copies to 2. So in other words, you read the data from the SSD, it goes into memory, and then if you're not doing GPU accelerated, then it has to go through and like copy again multiple times over to different places in memory every time it's doing some other transformation of that data, right? Whereas if you're doing the GPU accelerated transcode, it's basically the one memory copy and then out across the bus to the GPU, and the GPU takes care of all the other, 2 or 3 remaining mem copies as part of the decompression. And GPUs can do memory copies way faster than CPUs can, even with DDR5. It's not even a comparison, right? So obviously offloading that to the GPU makes more sense. Again, that's another thing that DirectStorage enables, right? You have to have that OS changes to Windows to make that happen. But again, at least on modern hardware, you're limited by that speed, and developers are probably going to they're probably not going to shoot for just the 5.5 number. They're probably going to go for a slightly lower minimum to account for more possible SSDs giving you a good experience, right? Because they're not going to only optimize. Clearly, they're not going to only optimize for Gen 5 because nothing can even go that fast on the GPU side.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I only buy SSDs for bad experiences. That's why I've got so many, Realtek or who's the bad one?
J-Micron.
J-Micron.
Yeah. Oh God, don't get me started on J-Micron.
I feel so much smoother when I'm surrounded by stutter.
They got better. Good. They got a little bit better.
The J-Micron SSD that had the USB port built into it.
Oh, so that was brilliant.
And the USB port throughput was about the same latency as the SATA throughput to the same controller. Anyway,
yeah.
So if the developer optimizes for a particular minimum speed, and they make sure that the texture is loaded in time, going whatever that 3-4 gig per second or something like that, as long as they've done their job properly, it doesn't matter how much faster the SSD goes. Right? Either the texture is loaded in time or it's not. Either it pops on the screen like what Josh was talking about with Rage, right? Either it's there and it pops in, right? And so one's a good experience, the other one's bad. So if you can get the good experience at even 3 gig per second, again, that you could have the game data sitting in a RAM disk, it's not going to be a different experience at that beyond that point, right? It's either it's loaded in time or it's not.
We have so much high bandwidth available to us, it seems. Like on modern platforms, you've got DDR5, you've got fast SSDs, and yet, unless you have a GPU with 16 gigs of VRAM, there are certain games that are just not going to play smooth at certain settings, certain resolutions, because of the way that they're programmed, the way that they're accessing the data that they need. And you're punished for having one of these like 8 gig GPUs. And
if DirectStorage had caught on more by this moment in time, that would be less of a problem.
And what were you telling me about? Okay, the one game that you've seen any coverage about with DirectStorage is Forspoken.
There is only one game, it's Forspoken.
There is.
What is it about Forspoken that's so ridiculous when it comes to DirectStorage?
Okay,
Allyn?
So Sebastian was complaining to me that he was doing some testing and noticing that there's almost no difference in performance because you can toggle DirectStorage on and off, and you can run this Forspoken, and then it even has a built-in benchmark that tries to load all of the level content, and it gives you times, right? Or you can time it yourself. I forget exactly how the output works on that one. But the developers of Forspoken decided that this would be the best time for them to optimize the non-DirectStorage method of loading the content. So finally, after decades of waiting for these developers to do the storage thing better, to the point where Microsoft even had to make their own API to force the developers for this to be faster, the Forspoken devs made it faster anyway, even without DirectStorage. So if you're trying to use that as a evaluation tool and figure out, I'm going to turn on and off DirectStorage, and I'm going to see how much benefit there is, it's almost no benefit because they're already doing the same kind of requests.
Because it's the one game
it's the one game that they decided
properly
to optimize the storage and also
but at the same time,
DirectStorage.
seems like a thumb in the nose towards the DirectStorage API because they're like, well, we can make it that fast anyways.
I think they kind of they probably took the initiative because presumably there would have been some conversation about, hey, you should implement DirectStorage. Here's why it does all these things for you. And the developer
And here's
probably
some money.
Oh, if I just ask for things.
Josh
Oh,
has
yeah.
it.
And
Well, there was probably some of that too, right? But the developer was probably, while they're reading all this information about DirectStorage, they would have seen, if you issue the requests at a high queue depth and multiple things in parallel, it goes faster. Oh,
wait,
okay.
QD1 4K is slower
Yes.
than
Yeah.
QD32.
So they kind of, I don't think they were being nefarious. I think they were just learning from the fact of, hey, this is how you make storage go faster. DirectStorage is
We
doing
already
it.
have
Okay,
the infrastructure
fine.
for this.
Yeah, we can just make it go that fast on our own anyway. And unfortunately, it makes it a very poor comparison tool for on or off direct storage comparisons.
Yeah.
Also, it's a kind of a poor comparison tool for GPU decompression because it doesn't use it.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say they've also made the GPU do things that other games do not.
But Forspoken doesn't use that. Forspoken doesn't use that part of direct storage. So even though it's the only thing that's out, that's a game that's released, it doesn't. If you want to test GPU decompression, you have to do what the Tom's hardware piece did, and that's use the Microsoft provided benchmark tool that tests the end-to-end throughput of the whole.
It's really
that's on GitHub.
Yeah.
So you can download that from GitHub. You can compile it yourself. You can run it. It's just a benchmark that tests, end-to-end everything, right? The speed of the disk, the speed of the texture decompressor on the GPU, everything.
There's a number of reasons why we didn't do like an official PC perspective direct storage test. I was just like looking at this stuff and like I've got to do this.
You can't really derive.
No, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wait till it's actually adopted.
I gotta compile something. I'm sorry, that's too hard.
I don't know how to do that.
But honestly, you don't even need to compile that test because you already have the results on the Tom's piece, so the numbers are already out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Tom's. Or you could be like Kent, and you have so much VRAM and so many GPUs, you just start putting them on your wall. It's like, this only has 12. I'm putting it on the wall. It's just wall art.
He's making his wall go faster.
How much VRAM is in your PC, your main gaming PC? Kent?
24 gigs.
24, of course. Josh?
And there's 24 here behind me waiting to go
Isn't that
in.
a 3090 or something?
His wall has more.
Yeah.
It's a 4090? You just have a 4090 sitting around.
He just has a 4090 sitting on his.
It's not even in
effing
frame.
hate you.
It's behind his chair.
behind his head.
Can you at least put it in frame? It seems like such a waste. Okay. Why isn't it in a system?
It's like one of the good ones too.
Because everything I have is water cooled, and I have to tear a loop apart and install it, and that's my next project. Is getting
there are
this in.
starving children who need that GPU, and it's just on your wall.
Listen, and
I've
also
got 10 gigs of memory in my video card in my main machine.
Same here.
It's also not plugged into anything because it doesn't fit.
Oh, that's the real reason. No, he's just afraid of melting it. That's why he hasn't plugged it in yet.
Doesn't have the cables for it yet.
What about you, Jeremy? How many gigs?
He's just stalled.
Yeah, I was taking away at people.
Oh, okay.
I was taking away at
16
people.
gigs, right?
Yeah, 6800 XT, 16 gigs.
Okay, so yeah, you're future proofed. See?
What's a 3090 got on it?
24.
24.
Oh, okay.
24.
I'm not using anywhere near what's on that card. I didn't buy it for the 24 gig of VRAM.
You know, when this whole discussion of 8 gigs not being enough started, I actually have a probably very unpopular opinion on this, because people keep talking about, oh, I don't want to buy a 60 series card and it not be future proof. Well, I got news for you. 90 cards aren't even future proof for more than 2 or 3 generations. Even
What's
if
the last
you had
future-proof card you bought?
even if you had 16
7800
gigs
GTX.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you had 16 gigs of VRAM on one of these cards, in 3 years, the processor on it's not going to be able to go fast enough to even need that. And this was, it was very strange to me because, when I used to buy like my first NVIDIA card, I think, was a 560 Ti. It had did it have 2 gigs or 1.5 gigs of VRAM? But I bought that not expecting, hey, this thing's going to do me for years and years and years. I knew that I was not going to be able to turn up AAA games to their highest settings. And it seems like people are looking to buy low-end to mid-range cards and expecting to be able to crank the settings and have a great experience at max settings on Ultra on everything, and it still be good for them for 5 years. And I know part of that has to do with the inflated cost on the new ones as well, but it just seems like it seems like they're expecting too much from low and mid-range cards, to me.
For too long after the purchase as well.
Exactly.
I agree with you when you're in the $200 territory. I don't think it's unreasonable for people to expect some longevity when they're spending $400 on a graphics card that is already obsolete for mid-range gaming, and that's the market, is mid-range for the 60
it's obsolete
series.
Today.
And really, it's just a problem with branding and price. The product itself is fine. There's nothing wrong with the 4060 Ti as an actual piece of hardware. The problem is that it's $400 and it's called the Ti. It could be the 4050 Ti for $199, and everybody would be fine with it. Like, wow, $200, and it's basically the same performance as the $400 card from last gen. That's fine. That's really good, actually. They'd be excited about it. There'd be a lot of like buzz around this product. Like, man, this 50 Ti. I always liked the 50 Ti. 1050 Ti was, was great to me. And now this 4050 Ti, I can basically game it at 1440 medium on that thing, and that's 8 gigabytes of memory is not that big of a deal to me because I'm saving money. I bet the narrative would be a lot different
Especially if you buy more.
Because
every once in a while, NVIDIA steps on a rake.
It seems like it's just getting worse. It's they did cancel the 4080 12 gig. But it's just
the visual pays off from the statement.
That's
okay.
This is one rake. I didn't say a dozen rakes.
I'm in Microsoft Paint right now, my favorite design tool. and I'm creating the solution to this entire problem.
Do you have enough
right
VRAM for that image?
Yeah, well, it's a VRAM kind of a thing. Okay, so
I meant, do you have enough VRAM to store the MS Paint image? Just
I'm compressing. Hold on, compressing. Obviously, we need to make the PCB green. Good. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this is just a first draft here, but okay.
The joy of Sebastian painting.
Graphics cards.
Oh my god, SO DIMMs?
Yes. We need expandable memory on graphics cards. This is not a new thing. I have an ATI graphics card.
That's old school. You want M.2 on that.
Or, well,
you want M.2, not SODIMM.
Let me add some SG RAM to that board.
If only this headset was wireless, I'd go down to the basement and grab the R32 with the.
Yeah, I have one of those too.
Yeah,
with the memory expansion.
And there were
what
video
you were
cards
saying
that were
earlier.
like this.
That headset almost is wireless.
It's trying to be.
This is very frayed.
If I get up, it will be wireless.
At some point in history, we were adding video memory to our graphics cards, and you could buy the little kit, and sometimes you'd slotted it in like there were certain like Matrox, I think cards had various cards in history had some kind of video
audio
RAM.
cards.
What was the card with the daughter board on it?
3D Labs.
Something like wasn't it a Voodoo or something 3000?
No.
No, I don't.
It wasn't a
Voodoo.
It wasn't a Voodoo. It wasn't a Voodoo. It was like oh man, it's going way back. It was before
You
any of
hooked
the 3D
those up in
effects.
parallel. You didn't add stuff to them.
I can think of a glint
There was
card that I
one
have with
had
one of these.
MD RAM.
Huh?
Like the Lightspeed 128. I think that it had a secondary connector that you could add
I'll bet on you
another
for that
2.5 megabytes of MD RAM to.
This was some other it might have been like a Matrox or something way back in the day.
Yeah.
I can see
it.
Matrox would have done that.
It was one. What was the cards that had like the S3 Verge engine on them? It was a card that came with a version of MechWarrior 3 optimized for it. Although I know that narrows
I just
it down
remember
to 4
the
different kinds of
brown
engines on
sockets that
MechWarrior
you could
3.
add more memory to as well. And the data card.
Oh, what was that Diamond GPU? Because I'm pretty sure it was a Diamond GPU with the.
It was Diamond. It was Diamond Multimedia.
I've got one in my hand.
Diamond Stealth 3D 3000.
Well, here's another one, and this I don't have the expansion on it, but this is a Diamond Stealth 64 video VRAM PCI. It doesn't have the expansion on it right now, but you see these slots here? Or these, anyway, you would put a board on it, double your VRAM.
Yep.
And there's a lot of examples of stuff like this, and then I can't find it right now, but there's an ATI card that just had like a regular like SODIMM slot on the back of it.
I don't think they sold the expansion board. You just had to buy the other version of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like the higher tier just came with that board on it, but I don't think you couldn't just like upgrade it. I don't think.
Well, the ATI one you certainly could.
Yeah, the ATI one, but I don't think the Diamond one you could. It was a different product ID that just had the extra board on it.
And, I mean, but then I don't think consumers would like it very much if they're like, yeah, I've got this new card and it's got a slot and I can add more GDDR6, and you look at GDDR6 pricing for one of these modules.
Oh, come on. Back in our day, we edited XM386 to decide whether we're doing extended or expanded RAM.
Oh, God.
And add a daughter card? Oh, come on. That's easy.
So the S3 version you just bought chips and you threw them into the brown.
Oh, that was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, let me
okay, if you go that far back.
Yeah, that wasn't the extra DIMM with the extra card on top. Yeah.
Like the SIP.
Yeah, no, it's the brown slots that you, and I just posted that in our
I mean, if you go far enough back to like the 386 era, there were graphics cards that just had like the little, industry standard memory chips, and you could populate.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that was.
It was flashing chips back in those days was fun.
It was MechWarrior 2 was like the Rosetta Stone of compatibility with all of the different kinds of GPUs at the time, right? Like it was a different version of the game. It was a different CD that you needed to install from, but there was like They had one for 3D effects. They had one for like Power VR, S3 Verge, like
Yes,
ATI.
they did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like there was like 5
each.
different versions of that same game, right?
So, viewers at home, they're looking at this card in confusion. The big brown slots came empty.
Yep.
But you could buy add-in chips to give your card extra memory.
And I think that one came
And it was
after
very
the one
easy
with the
to
daughter
do.
card.
Look,
Yeah,
it's got
there's a
even
daughter
an
card ones
MPEG
too.
connector for when you wanted to decode video. You bought the video decode daughter board.
See, that one was from 96.
And you totally paid for the codecs that you used too.
Yeah, because the one that had the expansion card was like made in 94. So that card says 96 on it. So a couple of years later, they made it so you could just like add the chips in instead of having a daughter card.
But you had to do them all, or else it didn't work.
Well, I hope so.
I found
it might have been
one of the
SGA.
ATI
It might not
cards.
have been VGA.
This is not the exact one, but
No, that's a Rage with one.
yeah, I mean,
but-
this was not uncommon. The idea that you could buy some kind of industry standard, fairly standard chip and add memory.
Oh, good God. Is that a SODIMM slot?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I have one somewhere in the basement
it's not actually SODIMM. It is you actually have to use their type of SG.
Oh, fair, but still.
It was something that was available. You could order this from somewhere, but you wouldn't like the price tag. That was my point earlier. I don't think people would like to know how much it would cost them to buy 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 in some kind of a package.
Hey, almost as much as it does nowadays.
Well, the other thing is the only way you're going to practically make that upgradable is if you have a rework station, like hot air station, to resolder them yourself. Because no connector is going to pass GDDR6 through pins correctly.
That's kind of the problem, is that the bandwidth got bigger and it doesn't really work that way, and the latency would probably be too high. And
listen, we're in a day where even DDR5 is significantly sensitive to having 2 DIMMs on a channel versus 1 for your speeds.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I saw Wendell's saga with that, trying to get the full 192.
Yeah, good luck with that.
System.
So much for quad channel, eh?
Shall we?
So where are
move
we
on?
at on the podcast notes? I have no idea.
We are on
there was a
Allyn thing Allyn added. Last thing before security.
Speaking of stepping on rakes.
Okay, Western Digital.
Yeah. Remember Western Digital had that thing with their NAS drives, and then they were all using shingled, or some of the models were using shingled, and people had like true NAS running, and ZFS was completely barfing on shingled really drives. Yeah, drives.
Is this kind of like
NAS
that
use.
HP thing with their SSDs, where
not quite
they would brick themselves after 16 by 2 seconds?
No, that was an actual bug. This is a thing that is intentional. Or at least appears to be intentional. So Western Digital has this.
Well,
thing
that's
called,
why he thought it was HP, because they do that intentionally a lot on their printers.
This isn't as well. That was a bug that they didn't want to be there. This is something that somebody had to make a conscious decision to say yes to this or to implement this. So there's a thing called Western Digital Data Analytics, and it's like an extra layer of smart data from a drive. Right, so it's able to give you extra telemetry, extra stuff's going on about the drive. Probably able to tell you better stuff about if it thinks there's something's going wrong or something like that. Right, things that the smart limitations, would be less restrictive if you added your own standard. Well, Synology added support for that. So if you're running a Synology NAS and you have Western Digital drives, I don't know if it defaults to on or off, but there's this. I think it defaults to on. Where if it sees WD drives, it'll turn on this analytics thing and it'll pull extra data. Well, they decided, somebody in a room somewhere decided, hey, what thing should we warn the user about? Oh, how about, things that are making the drive fail, things that we want the user to replace the drive, like is important, like, give them that extra information. Oh, let's just slip in when the power on hours matches the warranty period, let's just throw up a warning to the user.
Hey, how come you didn't include that in your new driver?
Yeah. because if somebody asked me, I'd say no. This is bad. Like, first of all, it's a warning that pops up. Like, are you expecting that you don't have faith in your own products once the warranty expires? Like, the deal? Like, that's the kind of message it sends, right? Like, that's why I would say no. I don't want even the perception that I lose faith in the product after the warranty period, right? Yes, the warranty period is there for warranty reasons, but it doesn't mean that the thing goes boom or starts complaining after that point, right? Well, that's what this data analytics thing is doing. Once you hit the power on hours that matches the 3-year warranty period, it pops up a warning. And so now you have a continuous warning for all of your drives in the array, assuming you put them all into service at the same time.
Oh.
Oh my God, this so reminds me of the Mighty Python skit where, the guy's in for an interview and the interviewer yells, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the guy goes, ah! Oh, do that again.
Yeah. So now once you hit the 3-year point, you're stuck in this other dilemma. Either you have to desensitize yourself to the warning and just live with it and hope that no additional thing warns that you missed, because now every time you open the console, you're always seeing some warning in the corner of the Synology UI, right? Or if you had email notifications turned on, you're constantly going to have this persistent warning for all of the drives from that point forward, right? And maybe some other warning doesn't send you an additional email, right? Because it's already in the warning state. So that's option one. Option two is you go.
But what if your other option is you send a warning and then a link to buy it directly from the manufacturer?
I mean, I'm sure that's
save 10%.
Yeah, well, there was a video that recently went up. Some YouTube guy that's consults on some stuff that involved setting up Synology NAS for somebody, and one of his customers had already ordered a new set of drives, because they saw the warning on all the drives. So what they just immediately I need new drives, right? Yeah,
that must have been his third day at the job.
Well, now you're just Well, if it's somebody that doesn't know any better, right? That had somebody else set up the NAS for them. They're just seeing a warning, and what are they going to do? They're going to be proactive and potential. If they don't know any better, they're just going to order drives, right?
No, or the other until the Dell drives actually dies. I don't care about the warning.
Sure.
When it's dead, I'll RMA it.
Sure, but you and I know better, but average Joe doesn't necessarily, right?
Fair.
So that's, option one, which just doesn't seem great. Option two is, if you do know enough to go in and turn off the WDDA feature, you'll still have Smart, which should still warn you if something else happens, hopefully. But now you're having to disable the extra telemetry of the drive just to get rid of the stupid nag, because by the way, your warranty's expired and we're just going to keep a warning up. So I don't know what Synology probably has the ability to kind of carve this out if they want to, right? I don't know if that's their plan or anything, but I bet you it's something they're thinking about, right? Because it's clearly leading to negative press right now. The more this is the point where the 3 years is running up or coming due on people that bought the drives that had that extra analytics feature. So, there was the post I linked, looks like one of the earliest mentions of it back in March, and then that video just happened the other day. So it's just going to keep happening now, right? As more and more people on the newer drive model run up against 3 years and have them in a Synology NAS, which is pulling this extra telemetry. I don't think it happens to you if you just using them in a regular, any other type of solution. It's just because Synology's was being fancier and more feature rich with their, with their software to pull this extra information from the WD drives. But can't really fault them. It's an extra feature. Why wouldn't they employ that? It's kind of Synology's thing. They're pretty good with that. So I don't really blame them. And it's a part. It's baked into the firmware on the WD drive. So unless WD issues a firmware to carve this out, or Synology has to on their own sort of make an exception in their, maybe add a little checkbox to turn off the warranty stupid thing. So that way you can still get the other warnings from that extra telemetry, right? You don't want to just give that up. But also at the same time, you don't want a warning constantly in the UI.
It doesn't seem very smart.
No. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. It was probably somebody that, in WSD's defense, probably somebody that didn't think it would be an issue. Yeah, they didn't think it would be an issue, but Synology implemented a thing, and the Synology UI provides a warning similar to a smart warning. So one thing led to another, and now it's turning into blowback, right?
And this is why every intern should come with a giant vat of mineral oil you can dip them in when they do something dumb.
Listen, Ken works for Intel now.
I know.
He's not
Not
an
an
intern
intern.
anymore.
He's not an
He's
intern.
moved on
he
to much
was.
larger
He's in his
crates full of
30s
mineral
now.
oil. He's got like,
he's
you
a
know,
grown man.
whole swimming pool full of it over there now.
Yeah. All right. On that uplifting note, as usual, let's move on to Security Corner. And as you know, we'll visit Bleeping Computer, and
There's a security corner now?
learn that
it's-
Android apps with spyware installed 421 million times from Google Play. Sounds
Brett
about
and I
right.
like to share our pain. And I mean, come on, the 3-year warning was a pretty good intro to this. But yeah, so apparently,
It was attached to Google Auth, so that helped those numbers.
yes,
I'm kidding.
yes, it
It
definitely
wasn't.
did.
Anyway,
It wasn't. But no, apparently, instead of providing ads to people that download free apps, they gamify them. So you get little mini games inside of your little app to play.
I hate those
and-
things. I really
Oh,
hate
I
those
don't. Seriously, I do not even understand the concept, but it's a thing. So there was one that was called Spin OK, which was offered to a bunch of other app developers, saying, "Hey, we'll tie in a Spin OK, and it gives your customers little games to play, and it's sort of fun for them and stuff." And of course, the games popped up exactly as expected. In the background, however, the Trojan was smart enough to check Android device sensor data to see if it was in sandboxed or not. So it refused to run if it was sandboxed. If you weren't sandboxed, as if you weren't looking for, active infections, as you're playing the game, it is browsing your directories, searching for files, happily uploading stuff from your device. It will change stuff in your clipboard, which can make for some interesting hijacking stuff, and definitely tried to steal all of your passwords for everything. It came in about a half dozen or so apps that probably had no idea that Spin OK was literally a Trojan. They just thought it was something to make someone, more interested in your app. And yeah, we're just about 400 million downloads of these infected ones.
Great.
Google has since pulled them, but I don't think they blocked them from your device. So, take a look if you really want to get depressed and because you play this sort of thing where, laugh if you don't play Plinko.
I mean, just don't ever play games on your phone, and this will never happen. But unfortunately,
I think the last 3D thing I loaded on my phone was the Unreal Fortress app on my
Oh God, you did.
Galaxy S3. It was a benchmark.
Yep.
I mean, it looked good for the time, but yeah, that was.
And it kept your hands warm in the
2008.
cold.
Yeah.
Google's
Hey, if you're
been
stuck in the
doing
middle of a
some-
Wyoming winter, you run the benchmark and your hands will be nice and toasty.
Yeah.
Google's been in the news lately doing some weird other things with their platform as well. Wasn't there? There was something recently with they banned like a downloader app because it was basically a browser that people could. Some other country was complaining that somebody could go to a piracy website, like in some foreign country. Right.
Yes.
And so they banned the app because it was basically able to browse to the site, right? But
Yep.
the other thing that can browse to the site was Chrome.
yeah, I think we talked about this last week.
Chrome's
maybe.
fine.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
we did
It,
a while back.
it was just
Yeah.
it was so silly. It was just like, what? Really? You banned it? You're gonna ban your own browser?
It's a
too?
standard web browser, developer says.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like it's a browser. Like, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it's encroaching on our territory, so
Yeah, yeah.
get
You're
the hell
crushing.
off our
If
platform.
anybody's going to do piracy, they're going to use Chrome. Damn it, they're not going to use your tool.
Wait, you don't
Yeah, and
use
then they
Edge?
rejected their appeal. That was the weirdest thing. They rejected
Yes.
their appeal too.
you'd think they have a great case here, and then no, app makers appeal rejected by Google.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, Google or Alphabet, as you can call them as well, they sort of removed the no from their slogan.
Yeah,
So if that was weeks ago, I wonder if
that That was only a week ago.
Wonder if there's a follow-up by now, like if anybody, like if they came to their senses. Since it got traction, clearly. Like I saw it in multiple feeds.
Yep. I don't know.
Oh, well.
Well, I mean, that was our mini security
I didn't
corner.
want to spread the rest of the hate because, I mean, Brett's out, so...
Yeah.
That whole check-in for if it's in a sandbox thing, that's like step one of malware, of like the nastiest malware.
Mm.
Ugh.
And the nasty thing is it uses gyroscope data. Because apparently when you're in sandbox mode, your gyroscope data is different
Interesting.
than if you're not.
Oh, interesting.
And they figured this out. At least for now.
That's
but
a novel way to figure out if you're in a sandbox or not.
Yeah. But you know what's worse? When you're trapped in a sandbox, it is actually an orbiting space station taken over by an AI that you actually remove the ethical constraints from, and is now looking to turn you into a cyborg like it did every other inhabitant of the satellite.
I thought you were going with the trapped in the sandbox with a cat, and we were going into a totally different direction.
No, it's gaming.
It happens
It's gaming
every time I go
quick
to the-
hits. And we're talking about System Shock, which apparently is stressful and stylish.
Yes.
Old and new blended into an unforgiving experience, writes Jeremy Hellstrom at PCPer.
Yeah, they decided to stick with 90s gaming on this.
As they should.
Are going to pull out a notepad and you are going to write down audio logs, because unlike nowadays, you kids that, once that secret code is in my audio log and I walk up to a keypad, it just automatically unlocks for me. No, you're going to have to remember that code, and you're going to have to manually enter it. And you're going to have to hope to hell that a mutant that didn't spawn just behind you is now beating the hell out of you as you're trying to do this. I was a little bit worried. I backed this about 6 years ago, I think, when they first suggested it. And it's taken this long to come out. But they've done well. I can't play more than about 2 hours of it without getting too stressed out to be able to cope. They've captured it. You need to lean around every single corner. And yes, there is a lean button, or else you're going to die. It took me about 2 hours to get at least a couple of weapons other than a pipe to beat cyborgs in the head with. They've gone with an interesting art style where a lot of the assets that you're holding are nice and bright and shiny and look new, like new graphics generation. But a lot of the other stuff it's not pixelated until you get close. And then it sort of resembles some of the textures that, at least I know for Josh and I, are seared on our brains for forever. And I think, Alan, you're with us on this too. System Shock was a horrifying game. It was so good. So much fun. But look at the text on the recycler. Oh, by the way, that's a recycler. You're going to need to know those. So, yeah. That is definitely... And if you look at the side of the gun...
the 128 by 128 textures that we were limited to back in the day.
So, not so much this gun, but other guns. There are, on the ammo readouts, very definite 128 textures. I am quite impressed by what what Night Dive has done. Or look at the robot there. Yeah. Right? It's good, but at the same time, it's a little bit blocky, isn't it? They've sort of recaptured it. The audio is brilliant. They got the same person to do Shodan, and it is just something else. The cyberspace stuff is much better than it was in the original. The puzzles are quite fun.
Do you have to repair weapons as often?
No, not so much.
Oh, good.
And
that was
there
awful.
Is no, but hell, good luck fitting them all in your inventory. Because you're playing Tetris, trying to fit everything in and get a couple of things and recycle stuff to scrap and run back to the recycler for the high value stuff. And oh crap, there's another friggin' mutant that's spawned where it didn't used to be. Yeah, there were two retro games that came out this week, I made my choice. I think Josh made his choice. What's a brand new one?
Diablo
but it's
4.
Yeah,
Retro.
I don't know. I tried the demo. I got to the boss at the end of the demo of the first dungeon, and I spent about 5 minutes beating on him. And like, wait a second, he's only got half health. I must be doing something wrong. And I started varying my patterns, and I died. Like, oh yeah, now your weapons are worn. And actually, you know what? This is kind of boring. And I stopped. Have you had a better experience?
My first run through was to like level 12 or something, and it was enjoyable. There was some replay value, but
Shaman, Barbarian. Okay. I tried the Shaman. It was pretty though. Compared to the old Diablos. Wow, it's pretty.
But I wonder if, the way that they're wording, they changed the wording on when things would unlock with the Deluxe Edition versus the Ultimate Edition. And you know what? Screw them. They're not getting another $10 out of me for the Ultimate Edition if they only unlock that. If they only unlock that on Friday with the Deluxe unlocked on Sunday. It's like, screw you guys.
That's just
done.
Bad.
Done. But they have my money, so I'm... Yeah.
Well, Nate and I have got my money 6 years ago or so, and I still couldn't get out my key code on time. Had to contact support, but I got it.
Yeah, that's good.
And I don't know about Bolt Gun. I'm kind of thinking about trying it, but honestly, it looks just silly.
You know, talking about silly things.
Yes.
I hear you got a new desk.
Can you tell us about your desk, Jeremy, in a concise and
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, brother.
Very interesting.
But stupid. No, FlexiSpot offered to send me out a desk, and I'm like, you know what? I've upgraded a lot of things over the years, but I certainly haven't upgraded the desk. And yes, the carpet needs to die, but that's a different problem.
Yeah, the walls look nice.
Yeah. Well, and FlexiSpot does not guarantee that you will get a new coat of paint on your walls when you put in a desk. But
I want to see your old desk.
I'm fascinated by a look behind the curtain. This is what Jeremy has been looking at for years.
That's the other direction, huh? All this time.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
you know why I don't send it that way now?
It's enlightening.
Just like,
I like your big ashtray.
It's far better than mine.
Just like me, it's been the same. It's been the same screen, the same speakers like the whole time, and even hold on, even in reach. There was a white spider in his on his desk.
Yep.
Nice.
And I have a Spider 5 on my desk right in the same
you got
place.
the Spider 5.
How convenient.
Well, stuff, accumulates over time, and you got to have it all within reach. But I think this desk was here when I moved in, and I just sort of took it over. And so they shipped me out. They've got a whole bunch of different types of wood that you can do and stuff, but I thought a light bamboo would be nice, lighten up the room and stuff. Definitely packaged very well. Completely solid. There's no way to screw up the installation. So even if you can't handle IKEA, literally there are screws in bag A, screws in bag B, screws in bag C, and the instructions walk you completely through it. You put it in, and as you just heard, it is utterly silent. It holds, I think this one's about 185 kilo. So you don't have to worry about overloading it in any way, shape, or form. It goes up to just over 4 feet.
So basically, I could recline on that dramatically, and you could still lift me up.
That goes up really high.
It goes down low
it goes
too.
up.
Look at this.
Yeah, it's just about 2 feet at very low.
It's like it goes from a sitting on the floor to a standing on a stool desk.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
You didn't go with the minimal desktop. I mean, you've got the nice bamboo, not just an iMac on there now with like a coffee mug.
I'm not Mary Kondo.
Okay. All right.
I need my joystick. I need my controller. I need my mouse. I need my beer.
I like how it's the exact same items, even down to the spider.
I thought it was the same picture. Right? Like, wait a minute. Oh, the base is different.
It's the same.
Okay.
I think the drink is the same, probably. Like, it's all the same. Back. It's just, you got to go back. Is it probably the same cup? Oh, no, the same cup holder.
Wasn't there?
No, it's the same coaster.
Yeah.
Same coaster.
Yeah. Same coaster.
And the wall's different.
That is a vintage Netgear coaster.
Oh, hold on.
That I picked up. Oh, God, I don't know when.
It's well used.
Wow. That's going to have some interesting cultures living on that one.
Good.
I wash it occasionally. I throw it into the washing machine because it needs it.
And out comes its own beer from the washing machine when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's for the rats that are down in the sewers.
Feast on the yeast.
So how much does this cost?
So they're constantly having sales, which is, I consider a very much positive. But this one, if you click on it, click through. I mean, it was $509. It'll probably come for a cheaper one. The bamboo is a little bit more cheaper, a little bit more expensive.
$30 off.
Yeah.
Oh.
Down to $319. Wait,
but that's just for the top.
That's no.
But that's the thing. If you've got your own top, they'll just sell you the legs.
Oh, nice! I can put a piece of plywood on there. They'll sell me chipboard for $80.
Yeah, I went for the bamboo
for $120.
Yeah, in light and dark, depending on how you like.
Okay.
The dark legs currently are more expensive than the white legs.
Okay.
But still, I mean, compared to like a Herman Miller, it's half the price.
It costs less than a car.
Josh wants a sheet of carbon fiber. Yeah.
But Uplift is sort of the other one.
Josh? No.
Yeah, they don't do carbon fiber, unfortunately.
So you do it yourself?
Can you imagine you're okay? So you're on the edge and you're scraping your forearms across carbon fiber.
I mean, finish the edges of it and make it soft and.
Who does that?
Clear coat. That's what clear coat's for.
A little bit of clear coat.
Yeah,
Bondo if you can't afford it.
Yeah,
but the thing is, Uplift does pretty much the same thing with usually less weight bearing, and then it'll still cost you a bit more.
Yeah, the value seems okay compared to. I mean, it's ergonomic furniture. It's always going to have a bit of a premium attached to it.
And if you want to get sort of crazy, I mean, they have some really high-end woods.
Oh, nice.
I didn't offer the bamboo with wireless charger, but there is a wireless charger. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, if you want to go for like rubber wood or black walnut, it's going to cost you a little bit more. I went for the smaller version. There is a slightly larger one. I don't know.
Final verdict? Good?
It's a damn good desk. It's significantly better than the one I had.
Well, I mean, yes.
It's a kind of low bar.
Yeah, the one you had is something that I can find on the side of the road any week.
But then again, I've got Herman Miller at work. I've got Herman Miller at work, and I hate it.
Oh.
It's got one powered leg and one dead leg. This has two powered legs.
How does that even work?
Is that the furniture brand, or is there actually a guy named Herman Miller at your work?
It
is.
He lost his leg.
They blew more on the furniture and
just got one leg.
Stuff.
It's not his fault.
Than they would on my server room. Yeah. So yeah, it's got one dead leg and one live leg. There's no cable management for their wires underneath, whereas these guys ship with one. And if you want to go crazy, they have a whole bunch of accessories where you can get trays, you can get extra cable management for your stuff.
Chat is talking about the low bar, the extremely low bar.
It really is. I mean, I'm going to admit, I put the picture up.
I know
where my bar is.
And hey, anybody commenting about his previous setup, I don't have the balls to give you a picture of my setup right now. It's ridiculous. You see boxes everywhere and piles of things on top of things. We don't need to look at that.
No.
This wall behind me is the only fairly clean area in the entire house. Really. Because of all my clutter. All right, let's move to the Josh review.
Josh review. So Monoprice sent a wheel stand for me to review. So Monoprice, they've gone crazy with all the things. It used to be just cables, and then they did cables and some low-end speakers, and then some microphones, and then monitors. Now they're doing racing wheel stands. Dark Matter GT. It's a relatively inexpensive, really solid, well-built, well-designed wheel stand for, racing enthusiasts on the PC or Xbox or PS5, whatever you want. Usually a lot of these things from like Next Level Racing, who I reviewed before, their basic starting wheel stands will start around $230 to $250. Well, this is 2/3 the cost of that, but it's the same kind of design and quality. So it's cold rolled steel tubing, both in square and round form. It's got a nice solid base for you to mount your pedals. There are 3 positions for the pedals and how steep you want them to be. I use number 1 with mine, but if you're going for more of an F1, you'll want that up. Powder coat was good. The welds were pretty shoddy. I mean, there's full. I wouldn't say thickness. I'm trying to think. When the actual welds go all the way into the metal. Not injection. There's a certain term for it. I knew it a couple of weeks ago. I don't know now because my brain is mush. But all their welds were pretty bulgy, just sloppy. However, they were strong. So there wasn't anything bad with them. It's just aesthetically, they're not terribly pleasing. Easily adjustable. So if you look in the previous one, you can see how you've got the numbers on the base. Do you see the embossed numbers 1, 2, 3 on the base? Well, you put the little nut in that depending on which vertical 1, 2, 3 you want to put it in, and it allows you to keep your base at the same width and stable. So instead of you're flattening things out by going with a higher number, for angle on the base plate, it stays kind of the same. It's a nice little design. They've got a little white stenciling on throughout to help you get the correct angles and everything on. They've added in the shifting plate. It's ambidextrous. It's amphibious. You can go on either side, and it fits the majority of different shifters. In this, I use the Logitech. Look at that leather, premium leather Logitech
Corinthian
shifter.
Corinthian leather.
Hand stitched.
Leather.
As you can tell, it's a little dusty in my house, but I've got 3 dogs, 2 children, and 2 cats. So there you have it. But yeah, no, it's a great little stand. It's super solid. It's fairly adjustable for the price range. It's only got kind of 3 settings for angle of the base as well as angle for what you mount the wheel on. And you want to kind of keep this under 10 Newton meters of force, because if you put a higher end direct drive, even though they advertise this can handle a direct drive unit, when things get really crazy, that could be flopping all over and breaking wrists. So, I'd keep with a regular belt drive or one of the lower end direct drives.
What about
for
the best
something
part?
like this?
The best part.
It folds. Yes. It folds. For,
I was just going to ask that if it
pleasure.
Folds. Because it looked like it could, and that'd be very handy to be able to just
It certainly does. You can hang it on a wall if you want. You can put it in a corner. You can store it away, and
like
you don't have to uninstall. Yeah, you don't have to uninstall anything. It all just folds up nicely.
I mean, basically, right? You just hang it up on the wall.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah,
I already have an ironing board. I don't need this, do I?
No,
ironing
you don't
board
need it.
No, you don't need the ironing board.
Oh, I see. I
use
can
it
use this
instead.
ironing board. Okay.
Okay, what you do is you get your clothes out of the dryer just as soon as the dryer's done, and you fold them, and you don't need an ironing board.
Oh, okay, Mr. Perfect, Mr. I'm always at the dryer when it stops. You know, I have a busy life, and they sit in there for hours. It's not
My dryer's
fault.
fancy. Every 5 minutes after it's done, it like tumbles for
Yeah, it'll do that if I do the wrinkle guard, which I
Extended
never
tumble.
remember.
wrinkle release.
So anyway, yeah, 150 some odd bucks on sale. That is constantly kind of on sale.
Chair
Monoprice.
not included though.
The chair
is
does make
definitely
sense, though.
not.
No,
That's
rug
included,
not
But you know what?
included
You're not a real gamer if you
If
don't
it
have a
doesn't
chair
come-
like that.
If
that
it
you
doesn't
race
come with
in.
that chair, that's a deal breaker. I'm
What are
not. I'm
these
not buying it.
games here? Is that Dune?
That's-
Dune on
Yes,
4K
that's Dune.
Blu-ray.
That's Dune. There's Harry Potter.
Halo 3.
There's Lord of the Rings that you told me I should get.
The 4K
Halo
one, yeah,
3.
with the improved color grading.
Rage
yeah.
for Xbox.
Oh,
You see
yeah.
it there.
I
You see
Rage
it there.
on the right.
barely can make out
Yep.
the lettering on these Xbox
Yep.
games.
Rage next to the other Halo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway,
Wow.
I'm sorry you know a little bit about me. No banking information, but close enough. So anyway, I got the silver award because it's a really solid little unit. And if you are a person who enjoys racing, your experience will be much improved from having a wheel stand rather than just mounting it on your desk. You permanently mount it to the wheel stand. It's a much better experience. And also, don't use a chair that has rollers on it, because if you've got any kind of load cell pedals, if you've got rollers on your chair and you push down the load cell
Going
brake,
backwards.
you just go backwards. Yeah, it's not good. So there you have it.
That's kind of the
Monoprice,
opposite
very
of
good.
stopping.
Yeah,
All right.
Just the fact
was an
that
enjoyable
folds
thing to
up so
review.
small. Just
Yeah.
the fact that folds up so small makes it like the first thing I've seen in years that makes me think of, hey, maybe I should get back into racing games, because I got out of them because the wheel and the pedals were always in the fucking way.
yeah.
All right.
Just take the wheels
Well, now
off
you
your
can
chair.
fold them up like dryers or like
Yeah.
washing.
Ironing board.
Ironing board. Yes.
Ironing board, yes.
Fold them
Okay.
up like you're washing.
Let's move to picks of the week. Josh, get us started.
What the hell did I pick again?
A thing at Newegg from Advanced Micro Devices.
Yeah. So a 5000 series 5700X processor for, it's like 191, but you take another 17 to 20 bucks off of it.
That's ridiculous. It ends in 2 hours.
Yeah.
If you're watching the live
time.
stream, go to newegg.com right
Yeah.
now.
This is
Yeah,
what you're
but
missing
still.
out if you didn't watch live.
Yeah.
192 bucks for a 8-core, 16 thread, 65 watt, fast AM4 processor. It just is under 200 bucks. And I imagine it's still going to be under 190 some odd. It may not be minus $17, but it's going to be pretty dang close. No cooler, but yeah, it's a great processor for the price.
Is the new thing instead of 10 cents a gig, like $10 a core? Is that where
Something like that.
we're work towards?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do $10 a core if you're buying like a Core 2 Duo. You can buy $20 Core 2 Duos all day long. $10 a core.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
E8400
But
all
per
day.
thread. Per thread is the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing.
$10 a thread.
Jeremy, what's your
Well,
pick?
I mean, as Josh said, you might need a new processor, and I hate to break it to you, but your thermal paste is old, and it's probably got everything sank down to the bottom or the top, and it's probably crap. But if you're Canada, there is a great deal on what is actually pretty decent thermal compound paste from Cooler Master. Instead of having to pay $9, it's $4. You can only buy 2. Don't, because you'll never go through 2 of them before they go bad again, because all of the thermal, the metal parts in that compound sink to the bottom or the top, depending on how you store it, and either becomes a little too conductive or a little less heat conductive.
Put it in the fridge.
Buy yourself some new thermal paste.
Okay.
Seriously.
Gas station hot dogs. They keep them warm on these rollers all day long. Put your thermal
Theoretically.
paste on a roller. Keep it tumbling. It'll never go bad. And the heat
Never.
from the hot
Just
dog
like
rollers
the
will
gas
keep it-
station hot dog.
Whenever you change the batteries in your TV remote, rotate your thermal pastes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maintenance.
But nothing beats a truck stop egg salad sandwich out of a bathroom machine.
Not only will it make you smarter, it'll make you more attractive. And,
yes. For a limited amount of time.
Well, right, until you give it up, and then the person didn't like the real you after all. It's a really depressing.
Well, sometimes you just feel like you need to lose 15 pounds in a very short amount of time.
That will also do it.
Yeah.
Allyn,
some of us have read the short story. Some of us haven't.
Allyn, would you like to provide a pick? I don't see a link here, but
I didn't link it.
I didn't link it.
Sorry.
I can just Google.
So I helped work on the thing. Now instead of reviewing the things, I finally get to help work on the things. So if you have a Solidigm P41 Plus or P44 Pro or even an Intel SSD 670p or 665p, you can install a driver. You can install a thing for free and get better performance. Is the gist of it.
How about especially,
a 660? We didn't go. We only went back 2 gens on the Intel stuff. Sorry, we had to draw the line somewhere on validation.
I know.
We only got so many people working on this thing.
My 660 is upset, but it forgives you.
Yeah. So if you have those 4 products, you'll get some features of the driver which help increase your performance. Which is there's a thing called Smart Prefetch, which is like an intelligent prefetching sort of thing that happens in the background. Does it better than Windows does it, which is handy. And then there's a thing called Dynamic Queue Assignment, which helps with higher queue depth bursts going to the drive, and it manages where the queues sit, like as far as what cores the NVMe queues are sitting on, and it does that a little bit better than what the default Windows driver does. So those are the things you get for any of those 4 drives. If you have a P41 Plus, that has an extra feature, which our new name, it used to be called HMC, but the new name for it, like the rebranded name, is called Fastlane. And that's a thing where the driver can help suggest to the drive which things should be in the SLC cache. So usually SSDs are really dumb about that, and it's just sort of like whatever the more recent thing that you wrote to it, that's what goes in the SLC, because it's like a write cache only. We're doing things a little bit smarter. We're taking some of that write cache and we're dedicating it to, hey, these things are frequently accessed. They should probably be in the SLC because you can read them faster than you can read them from the QLC. And it's the same sort of technology that was used back when you had the Optane accelerated NAND products from Intel, right? Like the H10 and the H20. Same sort of technology, but applied in a different manner, where you're not doing any of that weird stuff where Optane is half of the device, and this is just regular SLC cache QLC device, but we can apply the learnings from all the previous caching fancy pants stuff that happened in the past and just make it work, seamlessly on this QLC product. So good stuff. And especially for that P41 Plus, if you have one of those drives and you don't have the driver installed, please install the driver. It's like 7-10% boosts, like for general, like overall workload type stuff. Like PC Mark 10,
$0.
It costs you $0. Yeah, it's like PC Mark 10 storage test, which does trace playbacks of a bunch of different sorts of like productivity and gaming and all sorts of stuff. Like those results go up by 7 to 10%. Just
I
by
installed
having the driver installed.
and it didn't destroy my machine.
Good. One more validation person success.
Is this
great success?
A mistake? I'm looking at Newegg right now. Some people in the chat were talking about this. It's $75 for the 2 terabyte Solidigm P41 Plus.
Oh, bloody hell.
That is ridiculous.
That is correct.
Oh, yeah. That's
the
P41. That's the 2 gigabyte per second one.
That's
gibbers.
A gigabyte.
So
we're blowing that 10 cents a gig out of the water, buddy.
Bloody hell. Yeah. 4 cents.
I thought the
Ryan
P44
was
Pro
before his time.
So before Ryan's time, yeah. Yeah. So now Now, in all honesty, if you're going to be harder on the drive than you would want from a QLC product, we do have a TLC product. That's the P44 Pro. You're going to pay a little bit more for it, right?
That's still $129 for, and that's actually $10 off right now, $119. But that's also a 2-hour sale thing.
Yep, and that is among the best performers of Gen 4 SSDs out there.
Yes, it is.
That is a very good.
Depending on the workload, depending on how you're using it, it can be one of the, if not the top performer.
I did upgrade my primary drive from the first generation Sabrent, for the PCIe 4 to that, and it's been cooler and faster.
Yeah,
and
that's actually one of the claims to fame of especially the P44 Pro. For the speed that it goes, its efficiency is kind of nutty. It's very power efficient. It's like, we didn't want to go as far as to like make like super bold claims like going against Sony's guidance on if you put one of these in a PS5, for example. Like Sony always recommends put a heatsink on it no matter what. But we've done testing. We couldn't get it to throttle. Like, because it's that efficient, right? You really only need the heatsink to remove heat. Well, if the drive is doing things more efficiently than competing drives, then you kind of get to the point where you don't really need the heatsink for some cases, right? Yeah, so I mean, it's good stuff. This is one of those career moves where I'm happy that I made the choice to be working, in over here, right?
And we're happy you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're just happy you don't have to make a decoder ring at this point.
You don't even have to move.
Well,
yeah, I mean, look at all that stuff behind
Listen, I don't want to move. I don't want to move.
Think
all
about
this.
how long it would take to pack.
Yeah, I don't want to move all this stuff.
No,
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Kent, did you have a pick this week?
I did. In all the other hardware releases where the prices are out of control,
there's a new version of Depends, right? That is more absorbent yet costs less.
How did you know?
I'm not there. I'm not there yet, Josh. But one thing that is coming down in price is all DRAM, but DDR5 is actually reasonably priced now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
Why even go 6,000? Seriously.
Well, I'm sorry. What? I didn't catch that, Josh.
Why go over 6,000? But you got to turn around and you got this monocle. Don't go over 6,000.
That's 9,000.
It's 9,000.
9,000.
I know.
Okay.
Oh, still 38 latency. Well, all right.
Yeah, so there's some great prices for DDR5 on Newegg right now. I had linked a Team Group T-Force kit, 32 gigs.
Look, it's not over 6,000.
It's not over 6,000, Josh. And it's $85 with a $3 off promo code. So, if you're looking to upgrade systems and you've been holding off
for 32 gigs.
Yeah,
it doesn't
85.
sound that bad when you think about the fact that all these kits basically start at 32 gigs.
That's
100. It's not.
I really was not expecting DDR5 to drop this quickly.
Yeah, I really wasn't either.
No one is buying it.
Nobody.
Well, I mean, you've got people that were waiting for DDR5 before they upgraded to the Ryzen 7000 stuff. Well, now they're holding off until they get some more solid answers on why chips and motherboards are destroying each other.
Now they're waiting on BIOS updates.
Right.
I've got a $300 motherboard that's going to fry my CPU.
Okay,
exactly.
I have
good
literally
news.
At my feet. Literally at my feet, still in a package, is a 7950X I intend to use for a test bed and a $1,000 ASUS motherboard that I have not powered on yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good idea.
I had it for like several weeks now, and I'm like waiting because I'm like, I don't want to fry this thing. Just gonna wait until there's
and and now it looks like a genius move on Intel's part to have made the last two generations compatible with DDR4 or DDR5.
Yep.
Right.
All AMD had to do was offer DDR4 support with the M5.
Yeah,
as an
well,
option.
guess what they didn't do?
I know. And it's just, if it was, oh, you can carry you need a new motherboard and processor, but you knew that. But you can take your memory over and your power supply in your case, and we're used to that. We're not used to new board, a new memory, and a new processor, and it's really immature.
And new
there's gonna be a lot of growing
and-
pains.
Oh,
and
okay,
Agisa's
I'm gonna intervene here.
okay.
All of those, I'm gonna straddle 2 generations of DDR.
Yeah, please come into the
Or memory?
conversation.
They do not sell very well on the lower version ever in the history. It's been small percentages of sales of
What do you
motherboards
mean?
in that.
What do you mean by the lower version?
OEM. Okay, so if it's like, hey, this processor supports both DDR3 and DDR4.
Yeah.
And it just the lower end spec just has never done. So I can see why AMD did it. It's like it is single digit percentages of people who use it in this situation. Let's just cut it off.
Really? You think that it's single-digit percentages of people who buy a DDR4 Intel
Yeah, because
board, and a Core i3
you see it
or Core
primarily
i5?
in retail.
No way.
You primarily see it in retail.
It probably tapers pretty quickly, right?
There are a lot
early-
of DDR4 Intel options with Z690 and Z790, like high-end boards with DDR4.
There's options. But are
There's
they buying
options.
them?
But how much do they sell? Do you have that information,
Right.
Sebastian?
No, you don't either. You're just pulling stuff out of your butt.
Who am I?
And
John
I am
Petty?
too. And I'm confident in my imaginary numbers.
He can pull. Roses
I believe in my numbers more than you.
Okay, possibly supporting Josh's theory is the fact that the last 2 Intel boards at least the last one that they offered to send, MSI sent me the DDR4 version. And usually companies send the stuff that they want more coverage of, they want more awareness of because it isn't selling.
Or that they have 20 of sitting on the back
Right, it's
shelf.
like, take this DDR4 board.
Yeah.
But
I'd be surprised if the DDR5s are selling as well as the DDR4s.
Early on, though, before we had these higher clock DDR5 kits, there was still a pretty significant latency advantage on DDR4 because it was way more mature, right? And so you did have some competitive gamer types, depending on what they were doing and what their particular workload, if it was more sensitive to latency than throughput for the memory bandwidth, right? There were some folks that were going specifically with D4 boards. Probably less so today, right? Especially if you can get a 6,000 kit for insanely
$85.
$80.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, if people already had DDR4 and they wanted to upgrade, and you can buy DDR4 Intel boards cheap. We're talking like, $100 or less board. Take your existing memory over. If you're just on a lower end processor, do you need DDR5 to fully utilize your
Then why
Core
do you need a
i3?
next generation processor?
I don't know. It's a bad example. I don't know. By the way, I want to thank Wayne. We've had a couple of super chats. Earlier, we had one where the person gave us $5 and said, I didn't really have any reason, just thank you. And I said,
Oh.
And then Wayne is like, thank you, Allyn. This is really for you.
What did I do?
For the prescient, pertinent, and productive advice for solid state and spinning rest drives.
Oh.
People just love having you on the podcast, Allyn.
I mean, I try.
Somebody's like, oh, can Allyn do a mailbag on Friday? Let's just...
Hey, do you have one of those X25 SSDs in reach? That's what I want to know.
I can't reach the shelf without crackling my microphone.
Yeah, but
You mean the
Sebastian
drive
does.
that made
But
his
it's
name?
right-
Look at that.
But it's right there. It's literally right there.
X25.
Hold on.
World,
I have to,
that is
now
the
I have
reason
to,
that you
now I
know
have
the
to,
name
now I have
Allyn
to one up.
Malventano.
Now I have to one up Sebastian. Hold on.
Okay.
Alton Maltavina.
I'm gonna mute.
Oh,
so
it's
that's-
muted.
Oh, he's going to mute himself.
Maltavino.
Wait, he's going to pull out that J Micron
He's gonna
drive
pull
from
out
his
the one.
pants.
He's got so many SSDs, it would make you cry.
Weep.
He has to lay it gently, strumming his pain with his fingers.
You realize that the audio is never going to come back. The cord just disintegrated.
Yeah, well.
Probably.
He's empty-handed.
All right. So in that box, in that box that you have there, Sebastian,
Yes.
it's probably one of these stickers. If you were to open the box.
Yeah. It's been opened. It's not a sealed box.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Boy, you've...
Either Allyn is a hell of a magician, or he's got a real problem.
Your wallet anymore.
How many of those drives do you have?
Oh, so what model SSD was that? Was that a G2 X25M G2?
I think it's, well, hold on.
Is that what it is?
It's from, is it a G2? I don't think so. I mean,
No, I think that's original.
here, you tell me what this is.
Focus.
Oh, that's X25.
Oh, no, that's the original 80.
That's the original one.
Yeah, that's the original.
Yeah.
This was my first
2010.
SSD. I bought the X30.
Listen,
it was $300 on Newegg.
You lucky, because when I bought mine, it was $650.
No, I waited for them to drop. I was following PCPer at the time and excited about getting an
God,
SSD.
why would you do that?
Listen,
Well, for the SSD. It was because
that
it was
drive-
mostly Allyn.
that drive is what started the whole thing. I
Right.
bought one myself. I wasn't doing reviews, right?
Yeah,
But you
then you
found
had
an
to.
issue with it.
And I found an issue with it. I emailed to a few editors in chief to say, hey, I found this weird issue. I can't really go to Intel tech support with this. Nobody's going to understand what the heck I'm talking about if they're going through like a flow chart for like support, right? They're not going to fix that problem. And so Ryan was the only guy that answered my email.
Yep.
One thing led to another, and he's like,
And
hey,
history was
you wanna
made.
work-
And suddenly
work
we're
for me?
sharing
You
a
know.
bed at...
and suddenly I'm stealing
Yeah.
Josh at a sleazy hotel. in Vegas.
sure snores a lot.
Wow.
It's okay. Josh
he
was
used to
facing
throw
away from
pillows at me.
So it was, yeah.
Okay, do you have your decoder out?
Oh my goodness. The SSD decoder, Mushkin, that's probably Sandforce.
CZ.
Oh, it's got to be Sandforce.
Echo?
Because it's
Yeah, that'll be
120. See, that was the
Sandforce.
giveaway back then because it wasn't
That's gotta
128.
be-
It was
it's gotta be
120.
Sandforce.
120,
It's-
240.
Weird SSD brand, 120. Sandforce.
Hey, back in the day,
those were the days.
Mushkin had
Those
some
were the
premium
days.
SD RAM.
Sandforce was like 80% of the SSD decoder. It was like this drive, this name, Sandforce, and like
It was
half
the only
of
one that
those
was
were
worth a
OCZ.
damn.
Yeah,
Yep.
OCZ had like 10 different model names, all Sandforce, and then like there were all the other. Patriot had one, Mushkin had one, like everybody else had one, also
Then
Sandforce.
Indie Links came back.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
link still works.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
Googled it.
I've got one.
Jesus.
I've got one that still works. It's yeah.
There's the Intel first gen.
Yep, there's X25MG2 was right there, very
Yeah.
top. That's your one. Oh yeah,
No, the top
that's
one.
G2.
The very
The top one. You got to
80
go.
one.
You got to go further up. Nope, you got to go further up than that. X25.
There it is,
top
right
on
there.
the list. The very first one.
MLC.
MLC baby.
Represent.
And sure, the write speeds were only 70 megabytes per second, but that's because, you didn't want to overdo
It was
it.
rated at 70. It actually went 80.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Intel was
but don't
always
trim it.
under. They were well. They didn't support trim. There was no trim.
Nope, not back in those days.
Nope. And then there was a X25MG2, which, by the way, has this NAND in it, where my finger's pointing.
Hold on. Let me go back to the Allyn cam.
This NAND.
That
right there.
wafer back there.
That wafer. That wafer has buddies now. This is Optane from PCIe SSDs. This is Optane from DIMM form factor. So I got 2 Optane wafers in a NAND wafer now. Called in some favors when I left Intel.
Fair enough.
I was like, I really need to have Optane. Need to have some Optane. Like, why? And I was like, well, because I have.
Because no one else does. Or I mean, it was well received.
Let me rip this
we're not
Optane from my working
we're not-
machine.
We're not selling it anywhere else. So, I mean, yeah. And then, that one wafer in the middle is like, what's in this? Right? But then,
No.
then,
You and Wendell with those drives, man.
oh, that intro, that wasn't even these drivers. That was freaking P5800Xs, I did that trick.
Oh, okay.
We had an SSD off the beginning of one of his level 1 text videos.
He can try, but he'll never eclipse the master. He's the learner.
Okay.
You're like Qui-Gon, but like before.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh no! The crackling. Well, we could go all night, but we should probably do some sort of ending.
We should.
To the proper podcasts. It's 12:30 on the East Coast.
I stopped the cracking. I mean, crackling.
Yeah, the cracking.
I don't even know what's loose down there.
I want to thank Allyn for joining us. Thank everybody for watching on the live stream. And, of course, everybody listening to this podcast, everybody watching. We appreciate you. And we will return next week with more.